You're watching WHPS, Highland Park, Detroit.
WGPR Detroit, HD2.
The views and opinions expressed on the following show are not necessarily the views and opinions of WHPS, its affiliates, management, or sponsors.
My name is Watson.
And my name is Mariah.
We're 12 years old.
And we're representing Old Redford Academy Middle School.
And we're here to talk about drugs.
Drugs are very dangerous and unhealthy.
And they can also ruin a relationship with your loved ones. Go talk to a family member, a friend, even a teacher, or you can go to a therapist, or if you need any extra help, you can go online and find all of those.
Hashtag not worth it.
And good afternoon and welcome to Expose Under the Sun, sponsored by the Detroit Native Sun newspaper. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and I've got a very special guest, Mr. Ishmael Terry, that's going to talk about the upcoming election as well as to get us more information as pertains to how to vote. You know, we know that it's important to vote, but it's also just as important to make sure we know how to vote. And some people will be voting at the polls on election day. Some people will be voting before the election day, and they'll be voting early. And then some people will not be leaving the residences that they live in because they can vote absentee and mail their ballots in. So that's what we're going to talk about today, especially the absentee ballot vote getters. Some of you may know that a lot of people were starting to go, they were mailing out ballots yesterday on the 20th. And so some people will probably be getting those in the mail very shortly. So once you get the absentee ballot, it's imperative that you read it over carefully and you fill it out in its entirety and sign where you need to sign it. But before we get started with all that pertinent information from Ishmael Terry, our show is live, and if you'd like to call in, our call-in numbers are area code 313-868-0342, 313-868-0351, or 313-868-4336. And again, we're live in the awesome cities of Detroit, Michigan, under the auspices of the Honorable Mayor Michael Duggan, as well as the phenomenal city of Highland Park, Michigan, under the auspices of the Honorable Mayor Hubert Yap. A couple of things that, you know, we want to make certain of is that even though this is a midterm election, as they call it, and when I say midterm meaning that there's not a presidential candidate that is running. But still in all, this is a very important election. A lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of people that get elected during these midterm elections that are individuals that make a lot of difference when it comes to people in the residential states of like Detroit, and in the residential cities like Detroit, Pontiacs, Flints, Grand Rapids, all over the entire state. So the thing is that this is a race that also sees people that are looking for your support when it comes to judges who can make that difference as far as, say, in yours or somebody else in your family's life. When it comes down to laws that they're looking to make certain that they support as well. The other thing it does, too, is that the governor who can commute sentences, as a lot of you know, who can also go and do a lot when it comes down to certain bills that she or he may go and sign off on, as well as to keep you safe. You know, we've had a lot of things here in the state of Michigan that have occurred. Where we had a water crisis in the city of Flint. We've had the pandemic to hit us, just like it hit every other state in the United States. And we wanted to make certain that everybody stayed as healthy as possible. So that's one of the things that our current governor, you know, was making sure that people observed the mask mandates, observed the social distancing. I mean, it was so many things that, you know, we were trying to make certain of that we adhere to stay safe, getting the vaccinations, getting the booster shots. So there's a lot of things that the governor is going to really be tested upon in this upcoming election as to whether or not if you supported her based on how safe she kept you. And some people, sadly enough, lost businesses, lost, you know, contracts because of the requirements of the governor saying that there were people that could not congregate more than 25 people at a time, or even in some cases could not go out and have anyone that was not wearing a mask to come into their facility. So there's a lot of mixed feelings about how things were handled during this pandemic. But the main thing is that if you can hear the sound of my voice, you are still with us. So that's the important part, you know, right there. The other thing too is that when you're looking in terms of, say, at a lot of people that may be in the process of running, you want to look at the redistricting. And the redistricting was one where they changed the boundaries of some of the districts throughout the state of Michigan. We formerly, well, up until the beginning of the year, we formerly had 14 congressional districts in the state of Michigan. Now we will only have 13. And there's a big push because of the fact that the person that was in the 14th district, which was congressional leader Brenda Lawrence, is not running for re-election. So what they did was they combined parts of the 14 into surrounding districts. So now the 14th district is absorbed into the 13th district, as well as in the 12th district and the 11th district and I believe also in the 10th district as well. So there's a lot of candidates that are looking for your support in the 13th. There's a lot of candidates that are looking for your support in the 12th district. And Detroit is encompassed by both persons seeking your support in the 13th and in the 12th districts. So a lot of the candidates that were just in Detroit, like some of the state reps that just had their constituency in Detroit, now may have to go and look in Oakland County and in Macomb County for support from this constituency base. So a lot of people are saying that some of these lines were drawn and they were unfairly. They were more so promoting one party than the other party. But if you feel that you have a difference about how these lines were drawn, you know your candidates. If you don't, research them and find out where they're at and make certain that you understand too where the boundary lines are drawn, so that you may have been in, let's say, a District 5, for example, last voting cycle, but this voting cycle you may be in District 1. So you need to do some research, need to do a lot of background information to find out, and a lot of those candidates that you supported in previous elections may not still be in that district. Sure. So you need to do some research to find out who is looking for your support. And that made certain that registered, not just when it came down to the candidates that are seeking your support when it comes to state reps, but also state senators. And so you have to look at, are these individuals still representing my district? And then it also really affected the congressional because we lost the district. So there's a lot of people that may look on the ballot and say, wait a minute, I'm so used to seeing her or him as my congressperson, but now this person is not on the ballot and I don't recognize these names. So now what you should do is go online, and if you don't know some of the people that are running, you can go to www.vote411.org and get information about who's on the ballot and about any issues that's on the ballot as well. But today I've got a special guest, a good friend of mine. His name is Mr. Ishmael Terry. He has a couple of nonprofit organizations that he's involved with. But today, I'll let him tell you about those. But today we're going to talk about the impact that he sees as to how this election cycle is going to pan out come August the 2nd, which is the primary, and then November the 8th, which is the general election. Mr. Ishmael Terry, thank you for coming on Expose Under the Sun today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let's talk a little bit first about the absentee ballots. Now, we know that the absentee ballots have started getting, mailed out
Correct.
to, prospective people
Correct.
that are interested in voting absentee. But one of the things that people don't realize, too, and we were talking about this before the show, is that if you voted absentee in the past, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to receive an absentee ballot in the mail this go round. Is that correct?
That is correct. You have to do this annually. So because you have to do it annually, the city clerk's office or the township's clerks and the Secretary of State only have those who are registered by their application, which you have in front of you, that dictates on who and how you're going to vote as far as absentee. If you have in your ideals that, I voted absentee last year, that doesn't count for this year. So you have to take steps to be able to get your application in. Prior weeks is usually on a Friday or a Monday prior to the election. So in saying that, you have to get your application. You can contact the city clerk, or you can go down to the city clerk's office in West Grand Boulevard. I think it's 9678.
No, 2978.
2978.
West
Thank
Grand
you.
Boulevard. Okay.
2978 West Grand Boulevard, and ask for an application. And it's just a printable application, so you can fill it out there.
And it was
turn
an
it
easy
in.
process because I think you say you went in
Yeah.
and just walked in and walked right back out.
I
Pretty much
did.
like doing it.
2 minutes, 1 minute tops, probably at the most. I just
Okay.
walked in. I need an absentee application. They pointed me to the directions where most people go and vote on the first floor, and then I went and picked it up. There was no ID asked for, no state or driver's license, none of that. It was just, here's the paperwork, the documentation, and you fill it out.
So when you go and you get this application for your absentee ballot, because I'm looking at the sample, and I appreciate you bringing one of these down here to us.
No problem.
But I see where it says check the elections for which you are requesting ballots for.
Correct.
So the primary election or for the general election. So now if you've got the application and you check off for the primary election
Correct.
in August, now
You can just go right back and do the same. Now, but you don't have to do the application, though. All you're doing is going down there to do the ballot.
so you don't have to go and request another,
No, because
That's
now
what
you're
you-
already on the books.
and you say that's going to be for the entire year.
Correct.
So for the primary and for,
And
the,
for the
general
general
election.
election.
Okay. But then next year, in
You gotta go do it all
2023,
over
you
again.
gotta go through the process again.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's the mayoral race. That will probably most likely be the mayoral race that you have to, I think. Or no.
No, that'll be for
that'd
the
this-
senator.
Yeah.
The senators, because I think,
the U.S. senators
right.
and the judges. Yeah. Third Circuit,
and then I think that because the presidential is going to be in 2024.
24.
Right.
Yeah, and that will give you the mayor.
Yeah, it will. And city council,
Correct.
and, others on there as well.
Correct. Which is the more sexiest elections.
Well, people tend to go and kind of, avoid, and I don't know why, because they don't feel like it's not as, like you say, glamorous
Right.
to
Vote for
to
state
vote for the-
representatives,
right.
state senators, county commissioners.
City council, Wayne
Well,
County
yeah,
commissioners,
those are
commissioners and people
the
like
only
that.
people that they really realize are more impactful for them are city councils and mayor. And for some odd reason, the governor race this year is not as I thought would be where everybody would have their interest in, especially in the southeastern districts. So the southeastern Michigan, like Eureka, Taylor, Detroit, places of that magnitude, I would thought that people would be more amped and fired up to achieve the goal of keeping the governor here as the Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Garland Gilchrist, as well as protecting, because that's what we've been told, to protect Gretchen, Garland, Dana Nessel, and Jocelyn Benson. And I find it odd that it's not said, well, protect the state legislators.
So the state legislators being the state reps, state
And
senators.
state senators kind of odd man's out. And these are the ones that we're really focusing on, as well as the congressional leaders, such as Rashida Tlaib and others, and Kelly Garrett and the rest of them, because you only have 12 congressional, and now, like you said, the 12th and the 13th, and the 13th been split in two. So now you have men and women who, like you said, thought they were voting for a congressional leader that represent them in the 13th would be Rashida Tlaib, now is in the 12th.
Well, see, and that's one of the things that, as I was saying before, when you look at the ballot, and if you've lived in the 13th and voted in the 13th,
Right.
now Rashida Tlaib was the congresswoman that was representing the 13th congressional district.
Correct.
But now she, due to the redistricting, now she's representing the 12th district.
Right. And then the 13th will have either Chanel Jackson.
Well, it's got four people. It's
Yeah.
got Rashida,
Adams,
Chanel,
yeah.
as far as I say for the 12th district, Chanel Jackson, Rashida Tlaib, because Rashida Tlaib is now in the 12th. And then it's also got Janice Winfrey and Kelly Garrett, in
correct.
that. But then the 13th, where she was at, and now she's in the
Correct.
12th district.
Correct.
Now that's got a lot of candidates that are running
ton
for
of
the
them. Adam
support.
Hollier and all of them are all running in that race. And so I find it amusing, to say the least, that those are the things that we're really focused on. Everything else is kind of quiet.
Well, I think the main thing is that it seems like what we have to really get out and realize is that a lot of people, as you said, it may not be as glamorous to vote in the primary election.
Correct.
But there's a lot of people that need your support in this primary election as well. Now, the main thing that we just don't want to have happen is we don't want to have Detroit have numbers like 15% of the registered voters got out and voted.
True.
So it's imperative that now a lot of the seniors, a lot of people that are in school, going back to school, in the fall, the military people are going to be able to go and get these absentee ballots and be able to vote, because it's really imperative.
I think that misinformation, though, is also being ciphered out as well.
How do you figure that?
Because everybody's under this assumption that you got to now have an appointment to get your application, right?
Okay.
That's most of what you hear about, right? The city clerk is now telling people you got to have an appointment, right? That's false. That's not happening. You can actually go down there and pick it up. I just clearly went down there and picked up one.
Picked up your application. The
right.
application.
Which will give me an opportunity to get an absentee if I desire to do that. The other part of it is that anyone can go to the Michigan Voter Information Center, right? You can just go on there. That's the website for Secretary of State. You can get it from there. So
get the application.
application.
Okay.
But see, the thing is what we said on the radio show. how many of us have the access to computers or technology enough or the smartphone or know how to use the accessibility through the phone to be able to obtain that? So we have to be more due diligent on the men and women who are educated in this to be actually more access friendly to those who don't have the capabilities. And I think that will actually make things a lot more better as far as getting the information out and who we should establish to be state legislators, to be county commissioners and congressional leaders. That will actually turn around all of that. But it seemed like for some apparent reason we have pockets, and in those pockets, they're only giving out certain amount of information, and then they're driving them elsewhere, right?
Okay.
So now you see everybody scurrying around trying to buddy up with each other, especially the ones that just got elected in 19 and 20. They're buddying up with each other to run against anybody who's running against them.
Okay.
Right? Because of the redistricting have moved some of them out of those particular areas, so they had to team up with others. But I always say this, if you have to team up with others to get your message out, then that means you're not a stronger representative that we need, because that's telling me there you're learning on the job. And at this present point, if we're moving up to the suburban areas or down, or going south further, like Allen Park and River Rouge and those areas, then we're going to now start to need more leaders that are capable.
Okay, let's get back to this with the absentee ballot.
Sure.
So now, the main thing is that every time you move, you must update your voter registration address.
Correct.
It isn't updated automatically unless you update your driver's license.
Correct.
Or your personal ID card address.
That is correct. So if you have your state ID or your driver's license and it has your correct address, you're up to date. So say you moved, you have to have that on there.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, then that actually prevents you from voting, because now you don't have an ID. And this is that part where they were saying on TV where they're going to be doing more voter ID checks. This enables you to go and vote.
Okay.
Because you don't have, you can sign the affidavit when you get to the polling district, and you can sign the affidavit and say that I am who I claim to be, and they can count it that way. But if you wanted to do absentees and you don't do it this way, you are now knocked off.
Well, one of the things I want to let our viewing audience know is that after you complete the application, you must sign and date the application in the place designated. Your signature must appear on the application, or you'll not receive an absentee voter ballot.
Correct.
The other thing is that in order to deliver the application, you can do it by one of the following methods. One, you can place the application in an envelope addressed to the appropriate clerk and deposit in the U.S. mail, or another public postal service, express mail service, partial post, or a common carrier. Put the proper postage on it. But you can also return the application by email or fax as long as your signature is visible. Two, you could deliver the application personally to the clerk's office, to the clerk, or to the clerk's authorized assistant. Now, in either of the first two that I mentioned, a member of the immediate family of the voter, including a father-in-law, mother-in-law, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, son-in-law, daughter-in-law, grandparent, grandchild, or a person residing in the voter's household, may mail or deliver the application to the clerk for that applicant. Cool. Now, lastly, if the applicant cannot return the application in any of the above methods that I mentioned, the applicant may select a registered elector to return the application. And the person that returns the application must sign and return the certificate at the bottom of the application. Because there's two parts where the person can sign at. But the part at the top where it says voter signature and power of attorney is not acceptable. But you are certifying that you are a U.S. citizen and that the statements in the absentee voter ballot application are true, and that's what you will sign and date. But now if you have somebody who then is assisting you with returning the application, then they have to sign where it says certificate of authorized registered elector returning absentee voter ballot application. And you're certifying who you are, your date of birth, and your address, that you are delivering the absentee ballot application of the person's name that's on the top of this application at his or her request. And then you have to sign and date that as well.
Correct. Now, the illegal part of that is if you cannot be the person that persuade the person that's filling it out, the voter. Mm-hmm. So you can't do those things. That's illegal. And if you do that, then that ballot will be spoiled as well. So
Okay.
that person won't be able to vote.
Okay, we got a couple minutes left, Ishmael. Anything else in particular, just in a minute that we've got left, that you would want to, advise voters to do when it comes down to not just the absentee ballot, but also their drop boxes?
Correct.
That people can drop their their ballots in before the election, or they can go to the polling precincts and vote.
So one of the things I will tell people is, in your listening audience, there will be voter protection lawyers there
Okay.
at the polls. So if there are any challenges, people can actually have people come up. They're usually small organizations that's inside. They made a contract deal with the Secretary of State or the city clerk, and they bring them in. So it could be like the University of Michigan Law Clinic, right? So they'll come in and make sure they can challenge or keep people from coming in who may want to challenge all of the polls.
Okay.
areas. The other thing too is be mindful that people might say that they are to retain themselves in seats, but those are open seats. They're not seats that people occupy. So you have current legislators who might say, well, retain me. But to the normal person, they're thinking that they're trying to get their seat back. When they redistrict, they opened up every seat. Okay? So they had to use the 2020 Census Bureau, and they used that for 0.01 or 0.00 to be able to merge districts together. So in saying that, that moved a lot of men and women that were currently sitting in seats in other areas are now no longer sitting in those seats. So now all of those seats are open, and you have an opportunity, if you was an individual who have political chops or have an idea of what you want to change in this state, you can now run. And that gets rid of the clique. That gets rid of the favoritism. The constant, they're only selecting this person and they're running you off.
Okay.
The other people. Now, if you have a mission and a goal to change your lives and change the way people think in Michigan, now you have this opportunity. And we have this for 10 years. So now people are going to come in gangbusters for 4 more, 2 more, 2 more, 2 more to make a difference. So I ask people that live in, and I'm going to say this, Redford, South Redford, Livonia, and Detroit, as well as Dearborn and Dearborn Heights and others. Be mindful that people who will come to your door
Okay.
are people who want to do good,
Okay.
but do the research behind them.
Yeah, and that's
let
one
them
thing that
be-
we tell everybody.
yeah,
Make sure you do research
Yeah.
on anybody that comes to your door.
guaranteed.
Ishmael Terry, thank you for coming on Expose
for
Under the
having
Sun
me.
today. And again, we encourage everybody to make sure that you get your absentee ballot and you fill it out. And if you have questions, go to vote.411 and get more information about the people that are on the ballot and the issues on the ballot. Again, my name is Darwin Griffin. If you would like to get a copy of the Detroit Native Sun newspaper, who sponsors Expose Under the Sun, you can contact Ms. Valerie Lockhart at area code 313-457-5944. And you can pick up copies of the Detroit Native Sun News pretty much all over the Wayne County and the Tri-County area. Again, make certain, get out and vote. Have a great rest of the afternoon.